The creature feature just isn't explored enough anymore. Jaws was a monster of a success story and ended up having 3 sequels on its own and a slew of imitators. 1980 would give us, in my humble opinion, one of the better ones with Alligator starring Robert Forster. It was successful too, making $6.5 million on a $1.5 million budget. I know that's not crazy money, but it was a hit and it had a fun pedigree with it too that remains very popular today. It's one of the movies that keeps selling well with new and old fans, and it recently got put on a 4K. There weren't as many creature feature flicks through the rest of the decade, but a resurgence happened at the tail end. 1989 alone gave us the twin films Leviathan and Deep Star 6. And then the 80s turned to the 90s and we were given Alligator 2: The Mutation. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it, guys. This is one of the weaker movies I've had to go back and give a fair shake to. That's not to say it's irredeemable by any means, but it's just not going to be for everybody. There are some really fun aspects to it, which we'll get to, but it also has a lot holding it back. I think the big thing here is that if you grew up watching this on a Saturday at 3 p.m. on UPN 13 or TBS, or, according to the YouTube comments, Sci-Fi Channel, or something like that, then it's going to hold a special place in your heart. If this wasn't one of your movies as a kid, then that's fine. You just have to go in with slightly lowered expectations and an open mind. While the first movie is anchored by tough guy Robert Forster, written by Oscar-nominated actor, writer, director John Sayles, and directed by Cujo and Cat's Eye Helmer Louis Teague, Part 2 has, well, it kinda has the B-Squad. While the first one was produced and distributed by an independent company called Group 1 Films, this was made by another company and distributed for a quick buck by New Line Cinema. The director was John Hess, who had a short career that also included directing late 80s Corey Haim horror Watchers.
Corey Haim stars in Watchers.
Writing duties fell to Kurt Allen, who had also written, ironically, a different Robert Forster vehicle called Walking the Edge in 1985. Alligator 2 would be his final film, and sadly, with the dialogue, I get it. It's not completely his fault, as the actors are either kinda goofy to begin with, or deliver their given lines goofy, and 9 times out of 10, it just doesn't gel.
Well, there was a boot that washed up on South Shore this afternoon.
Maybe somebody chucked it.
Yeah, well, if they did it the hard way. The foot was still in it.
This is supposed to be a killer alligator flick, not an action comedy. The one exception to this is when the lines are said by the movie's strange choice for a lead actor.
You know you're cute when you're angry. Your wife's a lucky woman.
Joseph Bologna had a great career, including getting an Oscar nod for adapted screenplay pretty early into his work. His homage to Sid Caesar in the wonderful Peter O'Toole comedy My Favorite Year is a standout in a film full of standout performances. Also, I would never forgive myself if I didn't mention his role in Transylvania 6-5000. Anytime you can bring up that movie, you are legally obligated to. One thing that he was never linked to was Tough Guy Cops, and so we see him here, especially at the end brandishing a rocket launcher, is a thing of beauty that also makes my brain hurt. The rest of the cast reads more like what you'd expect from this sort of thing. One of the great ladies of genre, Dee Wallace, plays his wife, who is also a scientist who does sciencey stuff. Her lab looks like something in a 1950s Ed Wood movie and is stupidly charming. The guy who causes all the pain in the movie by helping to bury toxic waste in the sewer and is also a shady land developer is played by Steve Railsback. Railsback was of course Charles Manson in Helter Skelter, the lead in another great Peter O'Toole movie, The Stuntman, and in one of my favorite Ozploitation flicks, Turkey Shoot, in addition to loads of other horror classics like Life Force and non-horror like, well, I don't know, let's say Nuki. Finally, we have Richard Lynch in Louisiana Face here, as the leader of a band of gator hunters that also includes Kane Hodder, who was actually a stuntman for the first Alligator movie. Lynch passed in 2012, but had a very memorable face, and fun roles in a few later Rob Zombie movies, but also tons of great TV roles in the 70s and 80s. He was also great in one-offs like Invasion USA, and played a legally distinct, non-copyright infringing Freddy Krueger-like character in Bad Dreams from 1988. The movie starts with some villainous jerks dumping toxic waste at the behest of a shady land developer, here played by Steve Railsback. Sometimes you get chuds, sometimes you get toxic Avengers, but here we get a mutated alligator. 2 fishermen wander into the reeds, and we have a classic monster kill where we don't see the full creature, just the aftermath of blood and body parts. The first one takes place in Chicago, but this is some sort of LA suburb based on all the trees. But then again, that doesn't stop horror movies from shooting in LA and claiming to be somewhere else. Detective David Hodges wakes up to an empty house, but a birthday video from his wife and kid. His nickname is Solo Lobo, which is never fully explained, and his son never appears in the movie again. But this is just the setup to give him higher stakes against a real threat. The humor mostly falls flat here, except when it comes to Bologna. The man had great silent humor era facial expressions and reactions, while also being the only one here with any kind of delivery or timing. He starts investigating the missing brothers that we saw munched in the beginning, and the coroner finds some amino acids and compounds that they speak of like we're supposed to know what the hell they're talking about.
What we have here is positively a chemical composition and an amino acid.
The coroner also mentions a few homeless people that have gone missing, and there's a direct passage between where the brothers went missing and the sewer where the homeless have vanished. Some more poking and prodding leads to the belief that this could be a crocodile or alligator. David's wife Christine even believes there is precedent for this from New York, apparently even though they don't mention the first movie's incident in Chicago, so maybe they aren't in the same universe? To that end though, this movie feels almost like the movie that the characters in a different movie are watching, or like Scream and Stab. A lot of this movie is a retread of the first one, and this movie feels like that actually happened in universe, and this is the movie they made to capitalize on the event. Solo Lobo runs his theory by the chief, played by Brock Peters, and then goes to see the mayor. The mayor looked really familiar, and it's because he's played by Bill Daly, who did 131 episodes of I Dream of Jeannie and 140 episodes of The Bob Newhart Show. He is, by far, the worst actor in this movie, which is a shame because he's got a great comedy background, but I suppose just wasn't made to be serious. The mayor's hanging out in a club owned by land developer and professional snake Vinnie Brown, and it's glorious. It's a pro wrestling, fine dining adult club, and I kinda wanna go to it. The mayor tries to arrest Hodges based on what he's presenting to him, and it doesn't make any sense. But he tricks a rookie cop into getting handcuffed in the bathroom instead. I know I said the mayor's the worst actor here, but I kindly rescind that statement. The guy is not great. He does have one of the greatest lines ever though.
Well, didn't anybody ever tell you you got a great backyard?
Lobo runs into the local gang who also hate Vinny, but Hodges tries to tell him about the true danger out there. We see one of the homeless guys get eaten and another thrown around while the mayor's daughter avoids the advances of Vinny. The chief gives Lobo a final chance and assigns him the rookie, who promptly goes on to hook up with the mayor's daughter. Lobo shows up and breaks them up before taking the other guy into the sewer to confirm the gator. He tells him to take a shower before heading to the sewer because, probably won't need one after, I guess. Christine does more science and confirms that it has to be a large gator. The mayor and Vinnie Brown call in Hawk Hawkins and his crew of Cajun stereotypes to hunt the creature, but Hodges and Harmon have already run into it. They flee into the sewer and jump on the other side of a wall, which, I shit you not, is the same side of the wall used as the other. This is the type of low-budget charm that really grew on me for this flick. Nothing works, including a grenade, and they barely escape. The hunters, of course, get slaughtered, except for Richard Lynch and one other, but they do confirm the toxic waste. The chief and Lobo cancel the carnival, but Vinny runs the chief off the road and kills him. The deaths aren't particularly bloody, but there's a whole lot of them, something a movie like this really needs. The carnival goes on as planned, and the alligator attacks like you'd expect it to. It injures a few people and ends up killing Vinny after he kills the mayor for having a conscience about killing the chief. Weird. Richard Lynch gets eaten, like you expected him to make it, and the new partner cops go after it in the sewer entrance. The alligator already had explosives inside of it, so they're going to explode those explosives with more explosives, as you do. Harmon misses with his RBG, solidifying his status as worst cop on the force, but Lobo hits him right in the jaws. Sorry, I couldn't resist. He might as well say "smile, you son of a," but instead says,
Come on, baby. Come to daddy.
Which tracks for this movie. They exit to the park with chants of Solo Lobo, and we get a very 90s credit song, and quip by our hero.
I think I've had enough toxic chemicals for one lifetime.
Look, I absolutely hated this movie the first time I watched it, but it's really grown on me. It's a great mix of cheesy and so bad it's good that deserves a second chance. It's free on YouTube for Pete's sake, and while that doesn't exactly scream quality, it's no cost to you to give it a go. If you dig it, pick up the Scream Factory Blu-ray to keep the physical media train going. It's not as good as the first, but few sequels are, and it's a good way to introduce kids into this type of thing. It's a dumb, fun creature flick that they just don't make anymore, and deserves some love.